Life isn't perfect, and neither are we.
Nope. But we know how to face our fears
And have some fun.
and talk about all the messiest things of life.
Like the messiest things.
Get connected to yourself, get connected to others, and get connected to the life right in front of you.
This is The Connected Life with Justin and Abby.
That's me.
That's you.
And you.
Oh boy, do we got drama for you this week on The Connected Life.
I love me some drama.
What we thought was just going to be a casual,
normal, good episode turned into a fantastic episode as we got triggered in the middle of it and had to work
What's
through
this we stuff?
I did. I got triggered. But you know what is awesome is that we handled it magnificently.
Like bosses. And you know why we handle it like bosses?
Because we've been so bad at conflict for so many years that we've had to practice a lot.
Yeah. 16 years of practice and fumbling forward. But in the midst of all of our messiness, we were able to come up with a mini conference that we recently created called Connected Conflicts, Guide to Healthy Relationships. Mm-hmm. And we actually turned that into a course.
Yep.
And this was totally impromptu. You're going to watch the tools from Connected Conflicts actually walked out inside of this experience.
Yeah, because most of us didn't grow up with learning how to add safety to conversations and how to repair. We didn't have any maps for repair.
Zero maps.
And if you don't have a map for how to get to repair and how to add safety and connection in the middle of a triggering situation, then how will you ever do it? And so we teach step by step. I mean, we literally practically give you exactly steps to do. Mm-hmm. And we make it easy and it's approached from a different way. It's easy to understand, I guess I should say. Easy to understand. Takes some time to figure out how to implement.
It's great. So, if you're actually in the business of wanting to see connection inside of your lives, repair and restoration in relationships, Connected Conflicts is an amazing conference and teaching to be able to get your hands on. And you can go to Justin and Abby, that's abi.com/connected conflicts if you want to participate in that course. And if you just want to enjoy some drama,
here you go.
Here it comes.
Watch it unfold. Watch the pebbles drop until it gets.
I already have emotions about it.
Track.
I'm not even going to watch it again.
But you would, because it's so good.
Oh well, I did.
You did watch it again?
Yeah, because I was editing in.
And did you like it?
Yeah, I really did. I was like, we did that well.
Yeah,
that could have been disaster. All right. Without further ado, here it is.
How many times is this? How many times have we restarted this podcast?
Oh my God. You might be right. There might be an actual demon that's attacking us right now. I was just in an air conditioning war with one of my office mates, which we're on good terms.
Yeah.
We enjoy each other. And so, but like the AC flipped on and I was like,
the AC goes, and so it's noisy enough that we have to turn it off.
Yeah,
when we record.
But I literally thought, like, I swear to God, I turned that off. But my brain.
No, you got this very confused look 3 times in a row.
Yeah, and I was like, "What's happening?" No, I turned it off,
and you'd go turn it off. You'd come back,
but I still hadn't equated it to someone has to be turning it back on. I was like, "Did I not do something right with it?" And by this last one, when I came out, Joel's in the hallway, and it's just funny, and he's standing there.
Both were feeling crazy.
He's standing there with our buddy Tim, and he's looking at. I'm like, okay, yeah, he was feeling crazy, and now we realize that we just got into war, and I felt so bad because it's so hot apparently in his unit right now.
Did you offer them to use the other one down there?
Oh, he said he's going to go soon. No big deal. He was just flipping it on, and but whatever. But I was like, what, like the mind thing that was happening for me inside of that. But we made it. We're here at this podcast, and I think this is going to be a good podcast.
Yeah, because this is like our 5th time starting it.
The
so
worst
it's resistance be really good.
Ever. Yeah, no, I'm excited for it. What? You had something to say there? You like?
No, I didn't know where you're going, but I was going to say we should share. We just had a miracle happen in our lives.
We had a huge miracle happen that I think is worth it. It's as big as the resurrection of Jesus Christ.
Oh my gosh. Okay, we've been married for 16 years.
That's
And
true.
When we got married, we knew nothing about conflict except how to do it wrong.
Well, we didn't know how to do it wrong. We didn't know we were doing it wrong.
We knew what was programmed into our bodies and brains from our childhoods. Yeah.
We thought we were doing it great at first.
Yeah. We're like, wow, look at us go.
Oh, we're so good. We're better than our parents.
That part gets me.
Yeah.
Anyway, we ended up doing a conflict mini conference recently.
Yeah.
And we shared a little bit about our story with conflict, and then taught on all of the skills that we've learned, which I love, because conflict is just having conversation in relationships. It's not even like having fights, but being honest and knowing how to do that. We had never learned. We didn't know that there was a way to create safety while you're sharing your feelings, or create safety for the other person and for yourself when things feel intense. We just didn't know that.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's important. It's not important. I don't know what I was going to say, but
all I know is that we didn't know that there could be some healthy rules to the game.
We didn't know that.
And you're just fumbling along trying to figure out, how do we best do this?
Yeah. And here's the miracle, is that when we spent hours creating the conflict mini conference,
and hours,
and then hours doing it, and we didn't get into one conflict.
Not one conflict the entire time. Although there was a moment, because we ended up doing a live demonstration where we actually did a conflict
that we never talked through before.
Which could have been disastrous, but thankfully there was a whole group of people watching, so it kept us on our best behavior. Probably. I'm going to start inviting people into our conflicts, like our entire class. Come hang out with us.
We did that with the marriage counselor. It didn't keep me on my best behavior.
Yeah, it didn't keep you on your best behavior. but anyways, we were as we were doing it, and had everyone there. What was I going to say about it?
Well, we're having such ADD. Okay, when we were preparing for what are we going to do a conflict about, we almost got into conflict.
We did.
Because we were picking subjects that we needed to talk through that we haven't yet.
Yeah.
And we started talking about one, and we both felt the energy
get
like a little tingly in the room.
Yeah, and we stomped that energy out.
We were like,
we did.
We're not going to talk about it.
Turn the car another direction.
Yep. And it all worked out. The cool thing is that we had so many people sign up, we had to cut it off.
Yes.
The devastating thing is most people's links went into their spam folders.
Yeah, it was a really sad thing. A bunch of people were hitting us up. But if you signed up for it and you never got a link, go to your spam folder and
unspam us. Take us out. We want to be locked in your spam.
We can send you a way to actually get access to that conference if you want. There's going to be a few extra sessions to it as well that we're working on right now.
Or if you never signed up, you can go to support@stumballconsulting.com, email us, and we can give you the information.
So with all that fun stuff said, it's great. We're talking about relationship, the conflict conference and stuff like that, and relationship and 16 years of doing marriage. And I want to get into dropping a bomb today that I think is both a powerful conversation and a triggering conversation.
Ooh.
Yeah, this is where people are going to get a lot of emotions.
Maybe so.
Maybe not.
To me, I feel very excited to talk about it.
I feel happy to talk about it too.
What is it?
So I kind of came up with this conversation. It's about...
Do you want credit? I give you the credit.
I'll take the credit.
Okay.
The illusion of being able to be fulfilled inside of relationships, that you can draw
fantasy of fulfillment,
that somehow relationships, now that could be, marriage, that could be parents with kids and parents, that somehow if you have the right relationships, you're going to find fulfillment inside of your life.
Yeah. I mean, I feel so excited about this because almost every couple that we do marriage consulting with, this is one of the main problems, is that we all come to marriage believing you are going to be to me all the things that I needed as a kid that I never got. You are going to love me, take care of me, be safe for me in all of the ways that I never got to experience it as a kid. And so really, most of us are looking for parents.
Yeah, we want to be reparented.
in a weird way, we want to be able to have sex with somebody and have them reparent us. It's a very weird dynamic.
Yeah.
But it's true. Like when I married you, what I wanted was someone who would help me regulate my emotions. Like I didn't know that's what I was thinking. It was an unconscious expectation, but I was like, when I get married, I won't feel lonely anymore.
Yeah.
When I feel depressed, I'll have somebody who can pep talk me up. I'll have somebody who will be with me in all my feelings. And so I had anxiety, depression, self-hatred, and I really believed marriage is where you go and all of those things get fixed.
Yeah.
And I really wanted you, when I was having huge emotions, I wanted you to be calm and be able to listen to all of my emotions and have no negative reactions and just take care of me and just help my emotions. Because really, what was I wanting? My little kid who would get dysregulated as a little girl and would freak out and have big emotions. I needed a parent who was bigger than me to come say, you're going to be okay, and help me figure out how to move through emotions instead of like having them in prison and enslave me. So I thought, oh, now I'll have you. You can come lead me through my emotions so that they're not enslaving me.
Yeah. I want to actually, can we talk a little bit more about our relationship?
Yeah.
Because I think you bringing up the point of this idea that I could fulfill you.
Mm-hmm.
I felt the weight of that. And I actually want to kind of process about my experience with that.
Yeah.
I think if that's okay to start with. It's interesting because, when you talk, we even kind of addressed this a little bit, I think, in the conflict mini conference.
Mm-hmm.
And I perked up and smiled.
You're like, yes. Well, we had someone else who also shared this concept.
Yeah.
That they're 8 years in and realizing that their whole marriage, they've been blaming their spouse for all of the reasons that they're still afraid in life, or all of the reasons that they haven't got to their career yet, or all of the reasons that they don't feel emotionally safe inside themselves. They've been blaming the other person instead of realizing they just want a parent.
Yeah. And I could tell from early on in marriage, like there was a need immediately. And I think that this happens in a lot of relationships. And I don't want to get too general, but I think a lot of men communicate feeling like their spouse is needy, experiencing that it feels like their wife is wanting something from them that they can't give.
Yeah.
And sometimes I understand that there's aspects of a masculine culture that historically haven't been very present.
Yeah. Disconnected from themselves, disconnected from their emotions.
Yeah,
didn't know how to listen or connect.
Yeah, they're not present there inside of that. And so I can understand that. But there's this feeling that a lot of men that have expressed to me that once they got into relationship, like deeper commitment, like all of a sudden when the deeper commitment started happening, they felt something flare up, like they were supposed to be this all-encompassing thing for their spouse inside of it. And they suddenly felt like there was an immense debt that they couldn't pay. Right?
Yeah.
And I think that I noticed pretty quickly off the bat that it felt like there was a deep expectation of me to cover some sort of debt. I didn't understand what the debt was. I'm like, I'm just doing the best I know how. And there was a lot of places where it felt like you were really dissatisfied with me. Like, why can't you fix me? Why can't you be better for me? I need you to make my life better right now. I'm having all these difficulties. And I'm like, I don't even know how to make my life better. Like, I'm trying, but I could feel times where it seemed like there was a lot of resentment that would come up in those moments. And it would feel like it was projected that there was something inherently broken inside of me because I couldn't be something to you. Yeah.
Well, and I think that there's so many things that play into this. So I want to give a realistic picture to our listeners. We had a very common dynamic, which is that you were avoidant and I was anxious. And so, we talked about this in the conference we just did. you would rather be disconnected than have conflict.
Yes.
And I would
'Cause that
rather
felt safer.
be in conflict than be disconnected.
Right.
And so there was a sense, there was a lot of you withdrawing into you and me feeling abandoned by that. And so there's that going on, that there's a dynamic of,
Yeah.
I felt needy to you because there wasn't a real need that continued to get magnified by our cycle together.
Right.
And then there is the other thing of like, I was taught marriage is you marry your best friend, which I think in concept sounds great. But like the way I have best friends with girls is not the way that most men and women are best friends. Like it wasn't the way that we started, at least, like I wanted somebody I could talk to about all kinds of random stuff all the time and who never got tired of hearing my feelings ever and who wanted to do every single thing together. And you are different than me and you're different than my best friend. And so there was an idea, an illusion of what it meant to be best friends for marriage.
Right.
And so I really did think you're supposed, and I work with, married couples all the time, and I have so many people, they first get married and they expect like, oh, well, I've never really been vulnerable with my other friends. I'll use all of my vulnerability with my spouse.
Right. Yeah.
Oh, I've never let anyone else know these things about me. All of that will be with my spouse. So now all of your deep intimacy needs are getting put on one person. And I think it takes a tribe for you to be able to have your emotional needs and get them fulfilled. Not anytime it's one person. If it's one best friend or if it's one parent or if it's one child, it ends up feeling too much and soul crushing.
Yeah. I want to add to this because, I started out talking about a little bit about the masculine experience because I've had a lot of guys have that dialogue. I've also, and I want to throw out the other side of the coin now. I've had a lot of women that feel like because their husbands don't have a lot of male friends that they're engaging. So you talked about only having one person. So the guy goes to work, does all of his life, comes home, and everything is about, I need something from you within this relationship, where the guy isn't actually knowing how to exchange emotions anywhere else. And it's constantly, wives will be like, I feel like I'm his only source.
Yes.
Like I'm the only person at the end of the day. And I also, the only thing he needs from me is sex all the time. That is a generalized idea that's happened a lot with a lot of men.
Yeah. And I know a lot of men who they want emotional connection and their wives are shut off and don't want to.
Yes, it's very much true.
That's also a common scenario. But the concept is having one or both parties believe that fulfillment is possible within just the marriage relationship.
Yeah.
And that is so high stakes. And it would make sense for me. My mom, I was her whole world. She fully believed that I could completely fulfill her. And it makes so much sense. I want to point this out. Like when you have a child, they are so enamored with you. They are fully attached. They're fully bonded. You are their entire world when you have them. As a baby, 1, 2, 3, 4, they start making more friends as they grow older, and then they start getting more and more need for independence. But for like a good 6 years, you're their whole world. And then sometimes longer, sometimes shorter, depending on what your relationship with your parent is like. And so it felt like, to my mom, those 6 years probably felt like this magical thing of I could fulfill her. I needed her in every way she'd never been needed before. I loved her unconditionally. I forgave her unconditionally. I didn't need any separation. She felt wanted by me all the time. And so that felt euphoric to this woman who'd experienced so much rejection and abandonment in her life. It felt so good to have someone fully attached. Yeah. So we had this like very, very attached relationship. And then as I got older and I started having my own friends and my own feelings and my own identity and my own sense of self, then it started to feel like she was losing that thing she loved. But she believed, because in the beginning it felt so euphoric, she believed she was always just trying to get back to that place where I could be her whole world and she could feel fulfilled. And that that belief kind of gets passed down, I think. Like for me, my mom had this belief, someone can fulfill my whole world. It was me. But then that I just threw that onto you.
Yeah.
Like, and I think, I want to take ownership for that. I did a lot of blame when you didn't know how to help me regulate my emotions, when I felt despair about my own life and you didn't know, like, and why should you know? Like, really, I wanted you to be God, my counselor, my best friend, my sex partner, and my parents. I wanted you to have no fears about finances so that I could go to you. I literally remember having a conversation with God because I was feeling a little grief. You didn't know what you wanted to do with your life. It was at a point where you didn't have a job that would be a career. We weren't making a lot of money. And I was disappointed because I wanted to be married to somebody who knew who they were, knew what they were doing, had a path they were on, were making great money. And I remember God being like, yeah, so you could just ride their coattails. So you wouldn't have to grow up yourself at all. You wouldn't have to figure out what you want to do for your life. You wouldn't have to figure out your own steps for your future. And God was like, you wanted to not have to become powerful yourself.
Yeah.
You wanted someone else, which is, again, I wanted a parent to pave the way because there were so many parts of me that weren't parented as a kid. And so I wanted that. And so then there was that frustration towards you. Why aren't you capable of, and I've heard this from a lot of people. We don't want a robot because we want them to emotionally connect to us, but we want somebody that's unaffectable by life.
Yeah.
Someone who's powerful in every way, has no fears, no insecurities, is always loving, is the life. We want whatever it is that we're lacking.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If I'm scared of how am I going to make money? Then I want somebody who's going to make money. Or if I feel like I don't know how to be outgoing, then I want somebody who's going to be outgoing. And it's like, I want somebody else to be the thing that I want so that I can be complete.
Yeah. Yeah. I think there was definitely for me, like I said, there was probably a lot of pain for me.
Yeah.
Inside of that process.
Of course. And you
because
probably
I
felt not
enough. Let me continue.
Yeah.
I felt like I was constantly failing inside of the experience.
Yeah.
And that I couldn't win. It was like every time I got something right, there was another 10 things that popped up that were wrong.
Yeah.
That still weren't doing it. And it was kind of like it was a very painful experience in the sense of like, oh, there was this expectation in my childhood somehow that I could bring fulfillment and bring peace
to your family,
to my family inside of that situation. Now here I am again. And the message again, it was, I'm never enough.
Mm-hmm.
I've been given the impossible task, which is to actually bring peace and happiness and fulfillment to another soul. And I think growing up in the, especially with regards to the institution of marriage, I think the church perpetuates a lot of that. Like, oh, you just need, at least the institutional experience I had was like, okay, the end goal is that you get married. When you get married, that's when your life starts.
Yeah.
That's when fulfillment happens. That's when all the good, and I was like, okay, I guess there's a lot of pressure on marriage. I'm up to the test of it all. I guess I can try it and stuff. But I think a lot of people have that, and it's seen within rom-coms and romantic films and stuff like that. Like once you get into that relationship, everything's good. Mm-hmm. The movie's over. Mm-hmm. You've now landed.
Yep.
Thumbs up.
What else is there to do in life?
Nothing else. We got it. We're all good. We're happy now.
Yeah.
Inside of it. Yeah. So I appreciate you saying those things. One of the things that I was thinking as you were talking is I was like, what are the ways that you felt like I needed you for fulfillment? Is there ways that there were that, and how were they? What were they?
Oh yeah, definitely. I think I don't know that I think you express them because you're not very needy, but I watched your life from the outside and I was like, oh, he was never given compassion. He hasn't learned attachment. So I believed, oh, I could love you through the pain that you had. I could be safe enough for you to then be able to open and become who you were meant to be, you know, like a wounded little birdie that I was like, oh, come here, little birdie. I'll take care of you. I'll fix your broken wings so then you can fly. You know, the idea that if I was compassionate enough, loving enough, kind enough, you know, like you came into our marriage with PTSD.
Wait,
so
but
there
was this a self-imposed, what I'm curious is this like a self-imposed thought inside of you that you could fulfill me, or was this I put stuff on you? Is what I'm curious about.
I don't know.
I was just curious.
Yeah, I'd have to think about it. I don't know if there was. It could be both. It could be a little sprinkling of a little bit of both.
What I do hear you saying is that there was a sense inside of you that I could fulfill him.
Yeah. And I need to in order for me to be safe. So
Right.
A lot of us are doing that. It's a form of codependency, which is if I can fulfill your needs, if I can fulfill your desires, if I can fulfill your longings, if I can love you in the way that your parent never loved you, if I can give you compassion in a way you've never received, then one, you'll feel safe. And so you'll let down your edges and your guards. And two, you'll bond to me more than anyone else because I'm the first person who loved you that way. And you'll feel so happy that I loved you that way that you'll want to stay with
and
me.
I'll never leave
forever.
you.
Yeah. There's like a deep form of codependency that happens because of the euphoric idea. If I fulfill you, that will be fulfilling for me.
Yeah.
And I do think that that's a part of the relationship dance is anybody who's been codependent, we really do believe it's almost euphoric for us every time we feel like we fixed somebody so they'll love us. Like if I help you enough, you will end up loving me forever.
And I win, and that
I
feels
win.
euphoric inside of that.
Because really what we think is it's that feeling of my little kid who was trying to help my parents and could never fulfill my parents. And, you know, the illusion of being able to fulfill someone starts from our childhood. So I believed I could fulfill my parents, but I just wasn't good enough to do it. So I kept trying and trying. So then I meet a spouse, a partner, and now I'm trying to fulfill you. Because if I can get a hit, if I can feel like I fulfilled you, it'll feel like my little kid finally was good enough.
Yeah. Man, when you're talking about the kids stuff and you kind of brought up the experience with your mom and stuff like that, I think that that's a very familiar thing for a lot of parents. And sometimes they don't realize that like I am trying to pull fulfillment from my kids and feel special because I'm a good enough parent in these ways. And like you kind of said, it bled into that picture kind of recycles itself, right? So, oh, I expect you to fulfill me, and somehow this relationship we can find fulfillment within this relationship and put all this pressure on it. And then the kid goes out, finds a
person to fulfill them.
Yes. To try and do that. I think it's hard too, because like there was this sense in the process of trying to fulfill you, right? That I wanted to be able to say like, hey, I don't think you know how to be fulfilled within yourself.
Can you imagine trying to tell me that back then?
Oh yeah, I know.
I would have lost my mind.
I know. That's why I
would have been like, nope, that's not true.
Well, there's this idea because like I'm not even hyper spiritualizing this, but it's like this like idea that we actually need to find a fulfillment in our relationship between us and our creator and us and ourselves. Like those are two foundational things. And I'm like, I don't think those two things it didn't feel like those were two things that felt like they're realistic to you. Like you said earlier, I felt like I was trying to make you my God, my parent, my spouse, my sex partner. I can do the sex thing.
Yes, you can.
Yes, you can.
Yes, you can.
So you can come to me for that anytime. I got that handled. But yeah, and I think that's one of the most terrifying things is the conversations of trying to like bring even into light, like, hey, I feel like in this relationship, you want me to be more than I can be. And I think that's one of those things because people don't know, like, what is it okay for us to expect inside of a relationship?
Yeah.
And what level of, I don't know, what level of fulfillment, I don't even know if that's a word, but what level of goodness or needs should be able to be met?
Well, I think there's a couple things that feel so important. Like you've learned how to do attachment differently. So hearing it from you with also the energy of I'm willing to love you and meet you is very different than I'm avoidant and I'm telling you you're too much. Because the withdrawal and not being willing to meet you in relationship with saying you're impossible to please doesn't actually feel realistic, because there's so many times that I was like, I'm actually much easier to please than you think. If you know, this is the typical anxious avoidant dance. We call avoidance the islands and anxious are the waves. And when you get reassurance as an anxious person, you actually have less needs. That's like the attachment science. So there's a place that, because I'm wanting to talk about this in a well-rounded way. It's not just something you can like black and white say. Yeah. There's a place that when you learn to lean in, the person you're with, when they feel like their needs are going to get met, can become less needy. And that's a beautiful gift. Secure attachment, you often have less needs. So the more we've had secure attachment, the easier it has been for me to feel safe. On the flip side, there was a part of me, and I would actually say, instead of saying you need to be able to be fulfilled within yourself, it's learning how to feel safe within yourself. So like I've had to work on learning how to be with me, not abandon my own self, learn how to move through my emotions, learn how to, like we do a lot of courses because now we're trying to impart to people what took us so long to learn. Yeah. And a lot of it for me was learning, how do I get through my emotion waves? How do I regulate what's going on in my body and my emotions? How do I get love to the part of me that is a little kid? And I don't think it's as black and white as like, I just need to be able to do that all on my own and be fully self-fulfilled without you. And I also don't think it's as black and white of, I need you to do it all without me. So it's got to be this interconnection of we are working together to become safe for ourselves and to become safe for each other as we're doing that.
Yeah. I think that going back to the idea of parents and fulfillment inside of that space.
Can I just narrate?
Yeah.
I can tell I have a lot of anxiety.
Yeah?
Yeah. I think where it went in the conversation, because I think I have anxiety around not knowing if we actually see this similarly. And I can tell I have anxiety about feeling like, I think sometimes it still feels a little oversimplified, like you haven't validated the side to it, that there were a lot of other dynamics that created why I had so much need. Like there's two things inside me. I came with the idea that I needed help emotionally and I wanted you to be my parent and all that stuff. But also I came into the marriage and then you had crazy PTSD and were avoidant. And so I think when it feels almost like we're oversimplifying it, just saying, oh, I was just viewing you as, I was just asking you to fulfill all my needs. And I don't think that our relationship dynamic was simplified like that. I don't think that was all that was happening.
Yeah, I don't think that that's what I'm trying to say.
Okay.
I think that in this conversation...
Look at how we just talked through how we didn't have any conflict in our conflict mini conference, and now we're having conflict live in our podcast.
No, I think it's good to bring it down into a very serious tone, us being very present with each other right now in this conversation about it. When I look at it, I absolutely understand that I co-created a lot of that experience. It's very realistic that it would feel scary, and you could feel the disconnection inside of me when I went avoidant and stuff like that. And I think very much it played a role in you feeling emotions of abandonment and stuff inside of it. I think that when
and rage, where you would say really mean things to me, and then I'd be really needy to want to hear. Then I felt really needy.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes that got put in the category of I just wanted you to fulfill me. And there was a category of I just want you to fulfill me, but there was also a category of I'm being put down a lot in a way that I need to then hear the opposite of.
Yeah. Yeah. So do you believe that in this conversation, I hear you say, what I hear you say is it feels like I'm chalking it up to you just were needy.
Yeah. I think it feels like you're oversimplifying a very complex issue in our marriage that I just wanted you to fulfill me and that was it. And I think that there was a lot more going on in our connection and a lot more going on in my internal world. And I think that historically there's been a lot of pain in this dialogue, which I didn't know that this is where you were going with the dialogue, or we could have talked through this before, but it's nice to do in front of people because you're on your best behavior. No, I'm just kidding. But I think that historically this conversation has had a lot of pain because for years you did say you're being too needy. You want too much from me. And for years I felt misunderstood and like that I felt misunderstood. Like that's not actually what's happening here. Yeah. And so I think it how we're talking about it feels like it's hitting on that for me.
Yeah, I can understand from your perspective how you'd feel like or perceive that I'm chalking it up to just you were just needed me to fulfill you and I couldn't do that. I'm not actually trying to put it all into that category. I think that when it comes to the dialogue about, I think what we got into, originally used to get into was a really bad dance, even in that area of stuff.
Yeah.
Because I think that I don't know that I believe that I wasn't part of the problem, right? But what I felt like was it wasn't being acknowledged that you were bringing areas that were unrealistic expectations of me to solve problems for you and stuff internally. So I think you felt like we had a bad dance. I don't feel
like you're adding that you're seeing that there's a part of you that's involved, but a lot of your certainty language, black and white language back then made it sound like it was all me. Like, I don't remember you saying, hey, I know that I'm creating part of the reason you're needy. Like, because you weren't acknowledging the effect of your behavior. You didn't even realize you were avoidant and all the things you did back then that would create that. So I think that like, because there wasn't an acknowledgement back then of your behavior affecting me, I think we got into a very common thing, which is you just felt like my behavior was crazy and that I needed too much. And you kept trying to say it. And I kept being like, no, there's some really real dynamics here that if they were fixed would change us dramatically.
Yeah. I think we missed each other a lot in that. And I think that we both didn't have the language and the tools to communicate what was going on well inside. And, even to that, when you're talking about this, I'm sorry for the places that I didn't have language to communicate ownership of what was taking place, like the ways that I was adding to it. I think I think at that time, probably for me to even talk about, oh yeah, I'm doing these and causing these problems would solidify that everything was me. I think that
you thought that it would. I don't think that's how it would have been.
may not have.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, we're not then. Like, we were two different people back then.
Sure.
I'm just saying, at that time, my perception was the way that you communicated to me. If I fall on my sword in saying, yeah, I'm doing these things, my perception was you're now going to hunker down and be like, yeah, that's it. That's all you. And I think, and I think that we got into that bad dance. Again, that was part of the bad dance that got into, and we also didn't have words and tools to be able to fully talk about all that. And my point is, inside of this, like, you know, ultimately, even at the crossroads that we're at in this conversation, I am sorry that I didn't know how to communicate ownership or was scared to use ownership language.
Can I see you wanting to meet me, and you're staying calm and you're connected, and I really appreciate all of that.
Yeah.
I want to interrupt because I'll get hooked on this one thing, which is you're saying, oh, I was scared to communicate it, but I actually know you had denial about most of the behaviors that were hurting me the most back then. You weren't acknowledging that you were doing or that they would affect me. So I think it wasn't just that you didn't want to take ownership. It was also you weren't aware. And I'm not trying to say that in a blame way. I'm trying to say that like it doesn't feel realistic to me to have you apologize for not taking ownership, because the real pain was that there wasn't an acknowledgement of the behavior.
Right. So what I hear you saying, is this a live conflict mini conference?
I guess so. I did not know we were going to do this. I keep being like, do we keep going? Do we stop? What do we do?
Yeah, me too. Me too.
I can see us both calculating.
I'm like,
do we start it over for the 6th time, or do we just let people in on, let me do this. I love you. And I'm really proud at where we're at right now.
Yeah.
And we both have taken so much ownership
yeah.
for where we're at right now. And we both have owned much more of our roles in our bad dance now. And I'm really thankful that we've done that. And I know that we're still like, it takes a lot of time to be able to figure out how to talk through old cycles without it bringing up pain.
Yeah.
But I do feel like I really appreciate how much you're not in denial about how your behavior affects me now.
I appreciate that.
And I really appreciate how I don't feel like it's unrealistic standards. And I appreciate you not calling me needy anymore. And I feel less judged in that way. But I think there's such historic pain around feeling judged here. And I just didn't think that's what we were talking about for the podcast.
I didn't either. That's not where we went.
I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
But I do have such a huge well of pain from, I just felt so blamed. I think we both felt really blamed. Like you're saying that you felt really blamed for all the ways that you couldn't meet all of my needs. And that makes so much sense. And there were all these things that, like, the picture I have is that the picture I have of our marriage is that there's a bucket and I had a hole from childhood where I wanted you to fulfill that. And then we got married and you drilled a hole with your behavior. So there's now 2 holes in my bucket. One of them, so love is coming in and it's going out the holes in the bucket. But one of them, I shouldn't have asked you to fill. That wasn't yours to fill. But one of them you caused. Like, that's kind of how it feels. It feels like there was both things happening, but I got blamed that both holes in the bucket were my own fault and that you shouldn't have to do anything about it. Yeah. That's how it felt. And you literally used that example, but without saying there were 2 holes. You were like, it's like you're a bucket and you have a hole in it. And no matter what I do, it's just falling through, without saying like, and also I'm doing a lot of behavior that is causing it to fall through. Yeah. Yeah. One of the things I hear you saying is you're seeking validation for the role that I played inside of that. And it didn't feel like I acknowledged that. Right. Am I getting that right? Am I getting that right? Yeah. No, absolutely. I drilled an extra hole in the bucket as well. And I think that
I think that in black and white thinking, it was very clear there was a hole in your bucket.
We can agree on that.
I concur.
I concur. Yes.
And so there wasn't a world in that where I think I knew how to say, hey, there could be two holes in this bucket.
Yeah.
So it's either me or it's
either me or it's you.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And it felt like, no, I'm very clear that there's stuff from your life.
So it must all be you.
Yeah. And it wasn't just the idea. Like, yes, sometimes I thought it was all you, but I don't think that's also fully true. Like, I knew that there was at some level, I'm doing crazy shit and I'm causing problems here inside of this space.
Yeah.
But if I only have two options, it's either you who have the hole or I'm causing the hole. I'm like, well, there's a giant asshole that was already there. Like, right. But when I look at it outside of black and white thinking, right. And I go, I absolutely was part of drilling a hole in that bucket. And I'm really sorry for that. And I'm sorry for the places where it felt like it was either or. And I think both of us had a lot of either or thinking.
Yeah.
You know, you talk about the blame cycle that we did with each other.
Yeah.
And I blamed a lot. You know, there was a lot of things that I wasn't aware of how they would impact you. And I'm sad about that. Like, when you bring that up right now in this conversation, I'm sitting here being like, yeah, I'm sad about that. There were a lot of things that I was not aware of or I denied. And then there was things that I was very aware of, right? But I couldn't, like, if I acknowledged it, my perception was I'm already drowning with her. I'm already drowning in the way that she talks to me about how I show up in the relationship. And there was so much sadness of feeling like I was already drowning. And this felt like it was going to be the thing that like was going to sink me completely.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, and I think it would have sunk you completely because without validating the truth of what's happening, it would have felt gaslighting. Like, it would have felt that way. Like, what you're saying, I could feel my body like sink in when you talked about having black and white thinking. And we both had that. And a lot of couples have that. Yeah. So either like my spouse is crazy or I'm crazy. And we tend to keep it like that instead of like you were really broken and I was really broken. And we didn't know how to hold both things. Like the picture I gave, if we could have talked through that picture in the beginning, like back then, like, hey, there's two holes here and I'll work on mending the one from my childhood, but I need you to work on mending the one you're creating or that you've already created. And I think if we could have done that, like that there can be two things happening here at once. And I think the reason that the conflict, my emotions came up in this thing is it was feeling like we were going back into like some very black and white talking. And that feels still threatening to me.
Yeah, that makes sense. That wasn't my heart inside of it.
Yeah.
And it was definitely my heart to actually just have a conversation simply about the parts where it felt like you couldn't be fulfilled. And there were aspects of that, of wanting me to fulfill. And I'm in my head, I'm thinking of all these individual things, like when you'd have, you know, certain emotional dysregulated meltdowns and trying to get me to regulate your emotions for you and then getting more and more angry at me and aggressive with me when I couldn't. And I'm like, I don't even know, like, I'm just in overwhelm and I don't know how to make you come down from the intensity that's going on in your mind and in your body and stuff like that. And so I have thoughts of that inside of my head when I'm having this discussion. Yeah. And obviously as I'm having this discussion, you're going, I have thoughts over here on this side.
Well, because even that example, which you're doing such a good job in this conversation. I just want you to know that, like, you're staying tender and you're taking ownership for things and you're seeking to understand. And this is catching you off guard. And I appreciate
rolling with the punches.
You are.
I am Batman. He says with his Batman mug held up.
Yes, I appreciate that. You know, it's such a different perspective that we both have, and I do want to say, like, I do think it would feel the feeling of emotional pressure that you got from me would feel overwhelming. And I think there's so many places that you felt in over your head, like but I don't know how to regulate you, and I don't know how to fix you, and I don't know how to help you. And some of that I think is just from getting married young and never having seen healthy attachment. So you would have been in over your head no matter what.
Yeah.
But then there were so many things where I did not know how to regulate my emotions, and I wanted your help in that.
Yeah.
And while now we know a lot more about regulation, and so there are certain ways that, you could we could do a breath work session together or something. But the pressure of that, there were so many times that I got angry at you because you couldn't help me. And I feel really sorry for that. And that would feel high stakes. It'd feel high stakes that you need to help me, but also you don't know how to help me. And also, if you don't help me, I'll get mad. That would feel really trapping, and that'd feel really powerless.
Yeah. Can I say something there?
Yeah.
I really appreciate you saying that.
Yeah.
I can tell.
Did you feel emotion? It looks like you had some emotion.
Yeah, it struck a point inside of me. Yeah. Yeah, I feel a lot of emotion inside there. I don't know if I have full words to articulate it, because I that felt really scary for me.
Yeah. Because there was a tornado, and you never knew when that tornado was going to come at your house.
Yeah.
There was a machine gun going off with my emotions, and you never knew when it was going to get turned on you.
Yeah.
And you felt like, I can't just walk away because the machine gun will get turned on me if I walk away. But if I stay, the machine gun might also get turned on me.
Yeah.
And so you probably just felt really trapped and alone and overwhelmed.
Yeah. Yeah, I appreciate you saying that. That is true in those aspects. And again, I want to go back to saying there's a lot of aspects of connection that I didn't know how to do. I didn't, and there's areas that I didn't know how to regulate myself strongly. And you talked about rage, and when I would flip over go from my overwhelm into okay, finally I explode to survive whatever this situation is. That'd be terrifying, and that'd be overwhelming for you as well. And that, again, going back to that, would create a lot of holes in the bucket. In the message that would have got sent to you is that you're not lovable, right? And that probably that there's stuff profoundly broken with you and stuff like that. You probably felt very despised.
Yeah, there's a lot of contempt and hatred towards me.
Yeah. Yeah. I definitely, I had a lot of places where I protected with contempt and hatred in my heart.
Yeah.
And that would be expressed verbally in our breakdowns.
Totally.
That would come out untethered, and it would just, my tongue would say whatever it wanted to say in those moments. And then I would stew in hatred for you. I did. And understanding what we do now about the energy that we carry internally, I'm like, oh, there's so many times that you could feel me having hatred towards you.
Yeah. And then it felt like you were calling me needy because I would feel that and want. Yeah. And that's why I think they feel so connected to me. Even the example you gave of being so scared of my dysregulated emotions. And in my head, all these are so combined. I'm like, yeah, but sometimes I was that dysregulated as a response, a week after you raged. And there wasn't the ability to look at how everything was intertwining.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you thought over here, she's just machine gunning and it could turn at me. And when you're looking at that, you're thinking this feels so scary, which it was scary, regardless of how it happened. I wish I could go back and help both of us. That's why we do this podcast, and that's why we have courses, because we really want to help people avoid the shit that we went through.
You don't have to be sitting 16 years into marriage on a podcast having this conversation.
But I think like the two feel so inextricably like connected to me.
Yeah.
Of like, and so that's why when it sometimes it's felt like you were separating the two. Oh no, you just came to marriage with this. And so again, that the two holes in one bucket feel like probably the best analogy.
I agree.
Because it feels like it hits both. I feel really thankful for the ownership that you've taken in our lives, for your behavior and the ownership that you're taking in this podcast. I think it's something that feels really healing, but also like a lot of people aren't willing to do that. They're not willing to go on the process of owning how their behavior impacted the people around them.
Yeah.
And I really appreciate.
And I want to echo that, just because I'm watching you take ownership for actually showing up in those ways, and how that would be really intense and difficult for me as well. And I think that that's part of the idea of like a healthy place inside of a relationship is realizing that you both co-create something.
Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And there's something so beautiful about humble ownership.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really required in order for repair to take place.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I don't know.
Well, I will say, because something I loved that you said was like, when you're like, you could feel the energy of hatred. And I'm like, you could probably feel the energy of neediness and blame.
Yeah.
And I think it's almost like I feel like all of these were knit in the same fabric. Like some of your reactions amplified my reactions amplified your reactions. Like the more you felt me needing from you, the more you reacted, the more I needed from you. Like we just circled a lot. But I do think I want to say, I know my energy that I brought to the table was scary too. And I think there was a real feeling of not knowing, because I didn't know how to regulate my emotions. And I think most adults haven't learned this skill. And we want to do a podcast about it, but learning how to control our own emotions. Like I want to feel my feelings and be honest, but I want to be able to do it in ways that are not destructive to the people around me.
Right.
And I didn't know how to do that.
Yeah.
My emotions were destructive. And they came out in so many different ways. And I was trying my best. Like I didn't know what I didn't know. And I was trying to manage them and love you. And I lived in a crazy world where I would just lock up all of the feelings from your PTSD. And then they would explode out about something else that made no sense to you. And so you wouldn't be able to trace that they were connected. I wasn't able to tell you that they were connected. And so it did feel like we were both having these crazy experiences. And like I said in this conversation before, if you had been able to meet it, like let's say your rage didn't exist and you weren't avoidant and you're great at attaching, there's still neediness that I had that existed outside of that.
Yeah. I mean, I appreciate you acknowledging that even if I had done it all right, that was still something that was very real and existent in your life, and something that you were having to face.
There was a little kid in me that I needed to learn how to reparent. And now I'm thankful because we've learned so much about how to reparent our own little kids, regulate them, get their needs met. But I didn't know any of that when I married you.
Yeah. I know we got to land the plane on this conversation here sooner or later, But I think that that's a big takeaway inside of this conversation is like, hey, we each needed to be able to reparent ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And we needed to be able to become a safe place inside of ourselves. And honestly, as we've reparented ourselves and become a safe place in ourselves, we could have dialogues like what we're having.
Yeah.
We could evolve from, like this podcast was able to evolve from, hey, we're having a full conversation about fulfillment into, we're getting into some serious things in our relationship. And we didn't explode at each other because we've fostered a lot of self-reparenting and self-safety and self-regulation that as we get...
And we had to learn a lot of that separately.
We did.
Like we went to our own counselors separately.
We did.
In order to learn on how to take care of our own heart needs so that we could show up a little bit more holistic together.
Which is one of the best things we've done, I think, over for 4 years now. We've been seeing separate people and two people. Like you've had like 2 counselors at a time and I've had like 2 counselors at a time.
We're real fucked.
Yeah. But we've said, hey, I know I am my problem. My spouse is a little bit my problem.
And we're not doing black and white. It's not all us, but it is what we work on, what we have power over.
Yeah. But that's caused us to be able to do dialogues where we could hit hard stuff. Cause I know that this has been an issue that has been, it's fun. I'm laughing because, this could have been disastrous, this dialogue. Because this has been a hot button for both of us.
Oh, it's one of our biggest triggers. I just didn't know, like when we talked about the concept, I never even thought that it would brush into this. Did you think it was going to brush into this?
No, I didn't. I didn't. I just naturally started going there.
Yeah. And then I was like, oh God.
And then I saw that twinkle in your eye. That one that says, oh, we're effed.
Well, I felt my anxiety rising and I was like, I'm going to start to get edgy and you'll feel it.
Yeah.
And then you'll be confused about what's happening. And so I was like, and then you'll get lost in trying to fit. And then we'd start having weird back and forth. And so I was like, I might as well just
scrap the podcast anyways. You're like, what the hell was that? How do we get here? And then we'd be marching off.
Yeah. I feel proud of us.
Yeah, I appreciate, I know that you purposely leaned forward, grabbed my hand, and you were like, oh, I'm going to communicate connection. And then you communicated where I was, the good things that have happened and all of that stuff. And I was like, oh, I really appreciate that she's leaning in on this. And I know that it would have been easy for you because I've seen that place where you cross over and you go, oh, my pain over this is about to engulf me. And now I'm just pissed off at you. And my pain's got me engulfed. And you kept such a pace of I can feel my pain and I'm going to remember who he is. I'm going to acknowledge what he's doing and where he's at in this. I just appreciate how you're approaching it.
Thank you. I mean, that is what we just taught. So we better do it. But, the Gottman Institute, I just read to have a successful conflict. One thing I wish every person knew about how to have a successful conflict is that we can add safety in as a conversation's going.
Yeah.
And it dramatically helps us. And it dramatically helps the person across from us. So I'm looking for what are ways, a couple times you cracked jokes and we both laughed. That's a safety cue. You weren't cracking jokes at me. It was something that we could commonly, me touching you, leaning in towards you, telling you things I appreciate about you. Even just being mindful as we were going to tell you the things that you were doing right. What I'm doing is I'm adding safety in. I'm reminding you, I'm not going to only see all of your flaws. I'm going to see you, we did that black and white thinking when we were younger.
Yeah.
And that hurts us when it's you're all bad or you're all good.
Yeah.
So I was trying to remind you, hey, I see that there's really good. Even though we're talking about this thing that really hurt me, I see this really good. I value it. I saw you doing the same thing. I saw you getting soft. I saw you accepting, in the past. You hate conflict so much that you resist as soon as you feel like it's going there. I saw you just accept it is what it is. How do I
this shit's going down.
So how do I actually navigate this instead of how do I get out of this?
Yeah.
So you changed your mentality, and then you created a lot of safety for me by taking ownership, by trying to understand me, by having compassion, and for not just getting defensive, even though you could have. And so I felt like we were both contributing safety.
Well, I felt like we were on each other's team in this. Whereas in our conflicts when we early on in marriage, we were on team self. Survive.
Yes.
Right. And I think you talked about how I did accept, like when you transitioned and started talking, I was like, in the way the dialogue was going, I was like, okay, this is where we're at. Like my inner narration was like, all right, this is where we're at. We've now hit a trigger point. This may mean that this podcast is done today. I'm not going to fight to try and make this thing go a certain way.
Wow.
I'm going to accept that we've now struck a pain point, and this may be something that derails us in a way that the next couple of hours we're talking about like deep, hard stuff. Who knows? But I was just like, I'm not going to try and control this. The one thing that I did say to myself is stay present. Because I was like, oh, I could feel the edge where my anxiety started raising when you first started being like, I have anxiety. I'm like, oh, here comes my anxiety. Oh shit, I'm going into overwhelm. And I was like, nope. Hold on. You can be present here. You can be settled here. And I started telling myself, hey, this is safe. And I also said, you know how to take ownership. So whatever she's about to say, you know, even if I don't get heard, like there's that stuff I'm like, I need to be heard about this. I'm like, I might not get heard in it, but I do know how to take ownership and I can be present with that.
Wow.
And so those were a lot of the inner dialogue as that conversation was going there for me.
So beautiful. One thing I wish everyone knew about conflict is the more you resist it, the bigger it becomes.
Yeah.
The more you fight conflict, the more you try to shut it down, the more you try to either fawn like, oh, I'm so sorry. Or the more you're like, gotta go. Or the more you're like, no, that doesn't matter. Or like, it's fine. I'm sorry. You know, like you used to do so many tactics to try to get out of the conflict.
Quick
and we just worked through that so much faster because instead of trying to get out of it, you accepted it's happening. And so I'm going to be present in this.
Yeah. Well, I think I've learned at this point, like you'll just torture me until I fully accept that something's happened. So if I try to not accept it, you're going to just keep after me like a badger. I'm playing. It's not being passive aggressive, but you will not let it drop. But it's healthy to want to actually face it. And you did say it earlier, like both of us, I would have rather been, we said this during the conflict mini conference, which was a fresh thing that we both kind of dialogued about, but I said, I'd rather be disconnected than in conflict, because conflict didn't feel like I could ever win inside of it.
Yeah.
Conflict is only going to end with me being even worse off, right? So I might as well just be disconnected rather than have conflict.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and conflict would end in disconnection anyway.
Right.
That's how you
There's
witnessed
a no-win scenario once you
So
go down
why
the road
are we
of conflict.
causing more pain when disconnection will be the result?
Yeah.
Why not just live in disconnection without the pain of it? And instead, I'm feeling very connected to you.
Yeah, I feel connected to you too. Like, I'm like, oh, we should probably have sex.
After the cameras turn off. Do you have anything that you need to hear from me before we end this about this subject or feeling validated or seen?
No, I don't. I mean, like at the moment, my brain's not connected to anything or my emotions aren't.
Okay.
I just appreciate the way we navigated it together. Is there anything that you need to hear from me?
No, but I think we did a good job being gentle.
Yeah.
Gentle. Your heart was gentle with mine, and your willingness to talk through it really means a lot to me.
Yeah. And you know damn well it's authentic because we could have just scrapped this entire podcast anyways. I just say that because it's like, I think that it'd be easy for someone to watch this and be like, yeah, but would they have gone that way if the cameras were off? And I'm like, no, we don't have to even use the podcast. We could have re-recorded a whole other podcast.
Yeah.
It was genuinely, I could feel the genuineness of, hey, we're just both trying to love each other and walk this out well.
Oh, you mean how we repaired?
Yeah.
Oh, well, that's how we would do it. I mean, that's how we do it all the time.
Yeah.
This is how we've learned.
That's how we do it when we do it well.
That's true. Let's not say all the time, but it's going to be our all the time eventually.
Yeah, we're growing into it.
Yeah. And I thought your shame resilience is great. You didn't feel defensive.
Yeah.
Yeah. So thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you for not getting defensive. To wrap it up, I know that people probably, you watch this all take place and you're thinking, I want to be able to do conflict like that. Didn't plan for this, but hey, we did recently do the conflict mini conference. You can go to justinabby.com/conflict and you can actually sign up. There's a sign up there. And we will send you an email from that sign up with how to get a hold of the recordings of the conflict mini conference if you're interested in that. Because I think it's profound and I think it'll help a lot of people. So,
yeah, I mean, it is the thing that our students love the most because they're like, no one's ever showed me. The truth is we just need a map. Every human needs a map. How do you repair? How do you create safety while you're having hard conversations?
Yeah.
And I think we have a very hopeful view on conflict, which is not here's all the hardest work you have to do, but here's a few ways to add safety and understand how to connect to safety while your brain's triggering with your survival threat instincts.
Yeah. You know, to end this.
My favorite. How many times are you going to say to wrap up? To wrap this.
You got me. I was just going to say it's like we're able to do this because I think there's a lot more fulfillment inside of ourselves.
Oh yeah.
You know, this right here can happen because of that and because you're less needy. I win. Peace out.
All right, bye.